Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Secrets of B2b Sales and Marketing Innovators. So it's a live stream performance today. We're on the Alison Edgar MBE YouTube channel. The event is being sponsored by the amazing Lead Forensics. It will also be on GoToWebinar. If you are on GoToWebinar, we will be monitoring the chat externally, so it will be coming through to us on StreamYard. But if you've got any questions, just pop it in the chat and then they will feed it through to us. So today we have got an amazing panel who are just about to introduce themselves to us. But we really want to try and get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on in innovation, in sales and in marketing, in the business-to-business arena. Because let's face it, over the last 12 months, we've had to evolve, we've had to change, and we have had to innovate. So my aim for you today is that we get some great top tips that you can implement as soon as we finish at 5 o'clock today. So I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to get the panel to introduce themselves, starting with the amazing Ruth Williams. Ruth, who are you, and can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Thank you, Alison, and what an introduction. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Ruth Williams, and I head up the marketing and e-commerce function for a company called Astutes. They're world-leading health, safety, and environmental training providers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Georgina, over to you.
Thanks, Alison. Hi, everyone. I'm Georgina, Head of Inbound Marketing at Lead Forensics. I've been with the business for just over 5 years now, and I'm looking forward to hopefully providing some valuable insights and key takeaways. So looking forward to getting stuck in.
Thank you, Georgina. And again, massive thank you to Lead Forensics for supporting this event. Michael, over to you. Who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, Alison, and thanks to Leeds Forensics for the invite. I am the founder of a sales consultancy called Growth Genie that empowers B2b sales teams to have better conversations and get in front of more of their ideal customers.
Fantastic. And that's a brilliant function, especially at the moment. It always says, I'm team sales. We've got some team marketing in the room. I'm team sales. Marlene Van Roth is one of my great friends in the sales arena. Marlene, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Alison. I'm really pleased to be here today. My name is Marlene van Roth. I'm the sales director for EMEA for the hosting business at a company called SUSE, who's the biggest open source software provider in the world. I run a team of 10 people and I'm really excited to be here today and looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, are we ready to go? So the first question. So what does innovation in B2B sales and marketing look like to you? And I'll start off with Georgina, since it's obviously Lead Forensics. So that's very innovative. So what does it look like to you, Georgina?
So for me, I think that innovation is all about making continuous improvements to your marketing campaigns and strategy to ultimately align with what your buyers need, whilst maintaining a real focus on your business objectives and key KPIs to make sure that you're not innovating just for innovation's sake. That could be anything from adopting new technologies to get your content in front of the right audience at the right time to increase engagement, to reimagining your qualification processes to uplift conversions. But really to steer innovation, I think that you always need to refer back to what you're trying to achieve and what your buyers need.
I love that. So we shouldn't be innovating just for innovation's sake. We should make sure that it's got strong KPIs to feed into our conversions. Is that what we think, Georgina?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go to Michael. I'm going to go down here. Michael, what does innovation look like for you in the B2B sales and marketing space?
Yeah, I think a big thing at the moment is breaking through the noise, because I think with this whole remote sales, because we're all on the same playing field at the moment where there's hardly any face-to-face, there's no events. Everyone's kind of switched to prospecting on LinkedIn or email or email marketing. So if you're a B2B decision maker at an enterprise company, you're probably getting 100 sales emails per day, and 90% of them say the same thing. So you really got to think about how you can be different from all the other salespeople out there from an innovation perspective. And there's a few things that I recommend. So in terms of channels, something that we've seen work really well is audio notes on LinkedIn. So a lot of people don't even know that you can send audio notes on LinkedIn. So the reaction we often get when we send audio notes on LinkedIn is like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that, right? And we see about 3 to 4 times the conversion rate versus like a normal written message on LinkedIn. Videos as well. Videos are a bit more time consuming than audio notes, but videos are good. It also allows you to be human, because if you're sending a cold email and no one even knows who you are, and it's just written text, they don't even think there's a human on the other side of it. So it makes you a bit more human, like with your voice and your video. And then the first thing is just make it all about them. Like the first line, whether that's written, whether that's an audio note, whether that's a video, always make that first line about them and show you've done your research. So yeah, those are a few of the ways I'd recommend innovating in 2021.
I'm just going to recap that, Michael, and I'm going to probe in a little bit further on it as well. So you think it's noisy, and one of the things that's changed since the pandemic is the volume of email marketing has risen because we can't do as much face-to-face. So you suggest that the audience should stand out and do things differently. So use audio notes, use video notes, be different, stand out from everyone else. So my question on the back of that is, what's your thoughts on bots? Should we be botting? Should we automate? Or should we be doing it all personally?
Yeah, this is a great question, and one I actually get asked a lot with our clients. And I think there's a big debate between like automation and personalization at the moment. I actually think you can do both. And I think certain tasks you can automate. So for example, you may send a very personalized first email, video, audio note, whatever it is, very relevant to your customer. But then your follow-up may be something more generic, like any thoughts on the last message, Alison, whatever it is. And funnily enough, that generic message, sometimes you get a reply because it takes you back to the first personalized message. So I actually think you can mix automation and personalization. I would say you should never be 100% automated because you're not going to have success, but you can mix some elements of automation with personalization.
Can you tell that to all the people on LinkedIn that send me their bot messages all the time, Michael? Can you just be in there telling them you send the video message back? Perfect. I think that's, again, a really great point for the audience. I'm going to come to Ruth next. Again, what does innovation mean to you? Can you give us some hints and tips there, Ruth?
Well, certainly for us at Astutes, it's been a cross-fertilization of skills between the sales and the marketing team. And over the last 12 months, I should say that the two functions which normally run in synergy here have metamorphosed into something that's largely unrecognizable. So let me give you an example of that. The marketing team, well, they own e-commerce, they own sales enablement, they get sales bonuses, they automate the sales data, and in instances, we look after key customers. Now, on the other side, our sales team, well, they have back-end access into the CMS, they're updating FAQs, they're harvesting customer sentiment. So innovation for us hasn't really meant using any new tools. It's about really leveraging the assets that we've got and making those powerful connections between customers.
Ruth, I'm loving that. Like, you would think that sales and marketing is a wee bit like Scotland and England. You know what? It's like that old war. But actually, when we combine and work together, that's when the magic happens, isn't it? It's so important.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely lovely that you know, that falls under the innovation category, because for many years, like when I've been working in sales, that never the twain shall meet. So again, it is really innovative that sales and marketing actually work together. I love it. Marlene, over to you. What does that innovation mean like to you and your business?
Yeah, so that's interesting what Ruth was saying. And I was on an alignment call, I think a couple of hours ago with our marketing department, because I run the sales department. What it looks like to me, I think I put it into 3 brackets. So one is really the retention marketing, because it's so much easier to sell to existing customers. And I feel that quite often we so focused on new customers that we completely forget about our existing ones. So it's really kind of offering ongoing services, you know, establishing what they need, where they are going, where they are in their journey, keep sending out surveys and really keeping the existing ones happy, because it's much easier to sell to them and expand those. So upsell and cross-sell. And then really looking into content marketing. And I was doing a little bit of research, and I was reading that it's that when you spend £4,000 to £8,000 on content marketing, it becomes much cheaper. And I'm not saying I'm going to replace a marketing director, but it becomes much cheaper than taking someone additional on. So really looking into the key buzzwords, looking into what's driving the market. And then number 3 is, keep interactive content going, do storytelling, do references, shout out what you're doing with your existing customers, what is working, what's not, what you're seeing in the market, and obviously gaining those new customers as well.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at the innovation behind, it's not particularly innovative to sell to your existing customers. We all know that, but I think sometimes we forget, don't we? We're so busy trying to bring the top end in that we forget that. So you were talking there, Marlene, about the buzzwords and how to access that. Is there any innovative tools that people can use to actually access those things? Is there any innovation to make that content marketing any easier?
Yeah, so I think video streaming is really, really hype, and people love to see. So a little short video, getting pop-ups, having chat box, that really works. And I think having a really strong LinkedIn presence is really, really amazing. And having sold into the German market most of my career, there used to be a different platform called Xing, and they've all moved over now to LinkedIn. So I think kind of posting stories, posting videos, telling a story around it really helps.
Yeah, it's interesting there, because we're one of the questions is that what innovations are getting you excited currently. So from that, Marlene, LinkedIn stories and things like that, is that ticking your boxes? Is that exciting you? So it's quite interesting, because if you look at the other more B2C channels like Instagram and like Snapchat, they've been doing stories for a long time, but it's really good to see, I agree, the people who are innovating are using stories on LinkedIn, and again, getting much more exposure because they're seen a lot more. Michael, I'm going to come to you. What's ticking your boxes as far as innovative tools at the moment?
I covered this a little bit last time with the audio notes. I agree with Marlene that personal branding is a big thing at the moment, like posting on LinkedIn, even from a sales perspective. I think we saw it a lot with people like myself, who are essentially salespeople that sell to salespeople, and marketing people who are obviously on LinkedIn a lot. But I think you're starting to see it with other industries as well. And I actually think if you're selling to like IT or data science or whatever it is, it can actually be even more impactful, because a lot of those audiences, they're not trying to build a big following on LinkedIn like a lot of salespeople are. So actually, if you're selling to like a head of data science or a head of IT or CTO, whatever it is, and they've only got 1,000 connections, and you manage to connect with them, they're not going to have that much content in their feed. So if you're starting to post things that are very relevant to them as a CTO, as a head of IT, it's a good way of breaking through the noise versus like hundreds of emails, like I said, that they're going to be getting. And also another thing I really recommend on LinkedIn is, if your target audience is posting, like comment on their posts, because I've seen it like with deals we have in the pipeline, or even myself when we have customers have a deal in the pipeline, think the discovery call demo went well, and they ghost me. I do like 5 or 6 touches, no response. I comment on their post, and then suddenly at that point they get back to me. So actually commenting on someone's post can be a better way of standing out rather than like sending them an email.
So it's more of a holistic 360 touch point rather than just DMing people. You think it's a lot more innovative now to look at the different touch points, including, looking at their stories, maybe commenting on their posts, and really getting to know the person in general. Georgina, I'm going to come to you, because one of the things Michael said there, which again, I think is I don't know if it's innovative, but it's definitely a shift in how we market, because previously my background is I worked for big corporates and I would never really have thought to market myself as a personal brand. Everything would have come from the voice of the company. Whereas now I think that an innovation in marketing is creating a personal brand. So for you, working for Lead Forensics, what's your thoughts around creating a personal brand as an innovator, rather than just the voice of his master's voice, shall we say?
I think it's really about understanding your kind of audience as a person and being superhuman. And as you said, Alison, considering those multiple touch points. So not just using one tactic over and over and over again and expecting different results. Video marketing has been a huge part for Lead Forensics in terms of engaging with our audience, educating them, making them aware of our brand, and really kind of putting that human touch into marketing that we are a bit deprived of at the moment with everything that's going on. So I agree that video marketing has been a huge part in kind of connecting with your audience and your potential buyers, and ultimately it's a huge support piece in terms of engaging with your audience in a human and creative way.
So it's interesting, again, because it's come up from Marlene and Michael, and with yourself, it's a similar thing. And innovation is to use the tools that are out there, the audio tools, the video tools. So why do you think then, Georgina, more people are not doing that?
In all honesty, I think that it takes some courage to do great video marketing, and you have to know the person that you're marketing to if you're going to pick video. Like Michael said, you have to understand, are they active on LinkedIn? What content are they currently interested in? What challenges are they facing? And you really need to kind of get into your audience's shoes and really understand that.
And where, like, again, just to give the audience some tips, is there a specific place that you should do these videos from? Should you be doing it in the garden with your backdrop, or what should this video innovative way that we market on LinkedIn using the tools? What do you think that should look like to the audience?
I think that it should be completely genuine. I've seen tons of videos where cats are jumping in the background, and in terms of customer testimonials and case studies, I find it much more genuine when people are relaxed and in then kind of natural environments. And so I think that it is pushing that genuine perception, and making sure that you are human and that you're being empathetic to their kind of situations, and making sure that you're keeping it personal.
Perfect, thank you. Ruth, over to you then. So what's ticking your boxes as far as innovation goes at the moment in B2B sales and marketing?
So two things. So firstly, on the back of the video content, recently we changed our YouTube channel to Astutus TV. And in there, we've put a playlist called Ask Astutus, and we invite customers or anyone to ask us questions. And even though it's uncomfortable, we put ourselves and the directors and other people in the business right in front of camera to answer those questions. And we've seen such a surge in engagement, by 50% in 6 weeks of subscribers. So definitely with you there, Georgina, on video content. The other thing that I think is really exciting, certainly for us, is intent marketing. So I'm with Marlene on content marketing. I mean, Google, Alexa, they can understand complex questions. And what we found is that, in a recent research with our customers, that 20% of them were using ad blocker, 28% of them were having emails in dark mode. I mean, who knew? So we've had to do things a little bit different. And now we're through live chat function, we're harvesting those questions, and then we're creating content based on those long tails. We've been doing that for 8 weeks, and we've seen, I don't know how it's happened, but in February, we saw an increase of 40% in traffic related to those long tail search terms. So more of that, certainly for us.
Can you just recap on that again, for anybody that's watching? So if you can sort of put that into 3 tips to be able to get that 40% upturn so that the audience can implement it straight away. Thanks, Ruth.
So listen to the questions that your customers are asking, ask your sales team what customers are asking, and then create content that suits. If you've got live chat, again, harvest those questions and create long blogs. So to bring that to life, for example, if you were looking for health and safety training, rather than want to rank for health and safety training companies, you could rank for what's the quickest way I can get a qualification in health and safety, which is a common question for us. We create the blog and then we rank so much better. So we're always on front page.
I love it. And I love the fact you use the A word for the smart speaker. So you know that throughout the country, everybody that's listening, it will all be starting to listen to our conversation now as well. And again, it is interesting that you mention the use of the smart speaker that starts with the A, because that is really innovative ways that you can tap into those searches, isn't it? Rather than having to do it the old-fashioned way. This is innovation, and that's brilliant. Okay. So the next question is around, does the modern day B2B buyer journey, does it look any different now to what it was pre-COVID? So is the buyer journey the same, or has the buyer journey changed? Marlene, I'll come to you on that one.
So I would say it, and the buyer, I mean, in average has probably clicked on 12 different things on your website before they even speak to someone. So I would say that the buyer is much more informed than in a previous life, because they are online, they are sitting there 12 hours a day, they're not out, so they're really, really informed. I would also say that more decisions are being made digital, without having whatever the buyer buys, whether that's something you would usually go and see or you would go and test. So there's much more decision based on without having used something and purely on a digital decision. Otherwise, I would say the steps are the same, but your content has to be much more up to speed. Otherwise, you won't even see the buyer. The stages, I would say, are the same, but just more digital.
So what you're saying is, because now, hopefully coming to the end of the pandemic, like, optimism is everywhere, that more people are they're spending less time traveling, more time at home, and they're using that time to research themselves, which previously they were maybe relying on phone calls or conversations. So do we think then that there's maybe more of a shift towards marketing? Georgina, I'm going to give that one to you quickly. Do you think there's more of a shift towards marketing than sales now? Is marketing the leader in this field now with the innovation?
I think that from a kind of buyer journey perspective, previously it's very much been a handover from marketing to sales, and I think that's really transitioned over the pandemic. I think that marketing have much more involvement in providing that content and kind of nurturing that person through the buyer journey, and sales have less opportunity to influence buyer decisions than they did previously, and so marketing and sales teams now need to be much more aligned and work in parallel, rather than that handover process existing, and that can only be a good thing.
That's interesting, because it fits back to what Ruth was saying earlier about how important it is that they work together. Michael, I'm going to come to you around innovation as well, like post-pandemic, if I can use that word, because one of the things that I've seen in B2C innovation is around the car market and also the house buying market, where in the pandemic and in full lockdown, we're not allowed to go to car garages or really look around houses. So they've had to adapt to use technology. What tools do you think are now available on a B2B level that are similar to the car garages and estate agents? Is there anything that you know of that's revolutionised in that space?
Yeah, I can't think of particular tools, but I think it's interesting what you were talking about with the B2C example, because I think B2B sales is becoming a lot more B2C in the sense that I think, interestingly, there was a report recently released by one of our clients, Proposify, so a proposal report, and it was talking about how sales cycles had actually gone down during the pandemic, so shorter sales cycles. But I think a lot of it's to do with what Marlene was talking about, that technically it seems like a shorter sales cycle from like a request coming in, an inbound request coming into it being closed, but there's probably so much research that's been done on the back end. So it could be longer from the marketing perspective. And I think buyers more and more kind of want to buy now, essentially. And I've even seen it like shorter sales cycles with us and the clients that we work with. So I think we're kind of seeing, I mean, we're living in this culture, right, of instant gratification. So I think there used to be a B2b sales cycle and, you know, talking about the B2B buyer's journey of like, we're going to do a qualification call, then we're going to do a discovery call, maybe another discovery call, a demo, and you have these really long process. And I think now you need to provide value very early on in the sales cycle as a sales rep. So even if you're doing a qualification call or discovery call, you've got to be like educating your buyer from the get-go and like being a thought leader. So if I talk about that client Proposify, they've started in a first call sharing some tips around like what are best practices when it comes to sales proposals, what should you be including there? Because if they're not doing that from the start, they're going to lose out to their competitors. So that's a few trends I've seen just in terms of the B2B sales journey.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because it feeds into what Ruth was saying and what they're doing about taking those long tail phrases and being able to make that in and making that decision. If a client's starting to make a decision without you being involved, you want them to make the best decision at that process to be able to move it on. And one of the things that came out, I hosted one of these previously a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things was what can salespeople do to be more informed? You know, what's the expectation of now in the pandemic? How much more prepared should the salesperson be? How does the salesperson have to change with that? So is there any, for anybody that is on the light side of sales, is there any top tips in there, Marlene? What do you think as a salesperson, if you're coming into that, you know, the pre-qualification, the demo call or whatever it is, what can they do now to be more prepared considering they don't have to travel?
Yeah, so for me, there are those two things. A salesperson always has to be prepared and be aware. I mean, if someone approaches you and they know everything about you and you really know about it, did the research. So I would say stay on social media. You can have, you know, like a search, for example, on LinkedIn. If I say I want to be informed what Sainsbury's does, I get, you know, flags going up as a new owner, has a new CEO, etc. This is what's happening. So definitely be informed, set those newsletters so you get constantly the data flowing in and you're really on the ball. Because if you speak to your customer, they will really appreciate that, because you have to bear in mind you're one of many. And if you're the one who really knows what's going on, you kind of feel so much at ease. You're like, wow, this person actually is interested to speak to my company, to speak to me. And then number two, post-COVID, and I think you were asking Michael the question earlier as well, I think it still needs to be really personalized. And when I moved into sales 20 years ago, someone was saying, look, it's really all about the person. And I think even after after COVID, once hopefully it's over soon, it will be still about the person, you know, that personalized note, maybe send a branded box, you know, maybe send a box of chocolate or a handwritten note. All of that will still work after post-COVID and maybe will be even more important afterwards. So I would say, especially if with the world moving much more digital, and it is already much more digital, this will be even more important because it'll mean so much. Yeah.
So to use a very American term, you need to double down on your personalization. Double down, darling, double down. What was very interesting when we did the last session was we were looking at how, because marketing are obviously, well, everyone has said exactly the same here, that marketing are taking an even stronger stand, are really pushing, I call it sales and marketing is like golf, and only when the ball goes in the hole do you make any money. And the way that I describe it is good marketing puts the ball right up to the edge of the hole, and then sales tap it in and take all the glory. That comes from the marketing people, not from me, of course. But if you have a look at this, one of the things that came out in the last live event was that with the way business is changing, that potentially there's more sales people than there are sales roles. And word for word, Chris Murray described sales as the Hunger Games, and it was the survival of the fittest, and that we all had to think like Katniss Everdeen, that it was really important. So, you know, if there are salespeople watching this who have been doing like the same thing for years, they may be not up to date on innovation, and they may be not there. You know, what are these things before they would actually have that? They've got the personalization, but if you look at that qualifying call, Ruth, what details, what data do they need to know? Because we now know that the buyers are educated. So a lot of the questioning techniques of how many people are in your company, what does your business do? You know, you're buying into that really good quality time that you've gained for that customer. Really, they should know all that stuff, shouldn't they, Ruth? That shouldn't be a question that they should be asking in a fact find. What are the questions that are better quality than the how many people are in your organization? How long have you been going for? Give us some great killer questions that these salespeople that want to be like Katniss Everdeen can use.
Oh, what a great question. Well, luckily for us, we use lead forensics in here. So that preparatory investigation for what information you need on a company that might be interested already in your product is already there firsthand. All of our salespeople have access and account to lead forensics, and that really supercharges the conversation with them. But I agree with all of the rest of the panelists. It has to be personalized. And so a really important part of this is to segment the industry. So, you know, you wouldn't be asking the same questions maybe to the food industry that you might be to the travel industry, because they both felt something really different, effects of COVID. And I know this doesn't answer the question, but one of the things that we have been training our sales team to do is use technology properly, and certainly use background properly. I can't tell you how many calls I've been on with a salesperson when all you can see behind them is their washing drying. And, you know, so that's one of the key takeaways that we've certainly shared with our sales team is be careful what's in the background.
I am laughing now. I'm thinking, do not air your dirty laundry on a sales call. That's the top tip for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Michael, you talked about this journey. You know, what specific questions do you think that, you know, rather than the standard ones, what are the real killer questions that can really start to generate needs and qualify if there is the right buyer for you?
Yeah, I think I actually like what you said, Alison, regarding like doing the research before the call. So like not being lazy. There's so much information on LinkedIn or on their website or just on Google, right? So like do a bit of research before the call, and then rather than saying, you know, where are you based? Say, oh yeah, I saw you're in Berlin at the moment. Like how's the situation there? Or you could go one step further and like have a look and see, oh, I heard there's problems like with the vaccine in Berlin. You may not want to say that because maybe that's more of a negative talk track, but yeah, essentially doing that research. And a good example I can give from one of our clients is they got sold a solution called Reach Desk, which essentially is to send people like direct mail and e-gifts, which is another good way to kind of break through the noise at the moment. And the head of marketing, who was a decision maker, on her Twitter, she put about how she liked spaghetti hoops on toast, which was like this controversial thing because it was like carbs on carbs, essentially. And anyway, the salesperson at Reach Desk reached out and was talking about spaghetti hoops on toast, like mentioned it in the subject line. And obviously it was such a niche thing that it got her attention. So I think the more niche the thing you can find about this person, the more you should include it, because the more it's going to stand out. So
I love that. And again, it comes back to your very first point, Michael, about standing out from the noise, isn't it? Really, it is that standing out. So again, I'll ask that in a sort of a different way. I'll come to Georgina on this one. So what happens if your ideal prospect doesn't have social media? You know, what are the innovations that we can do without social media snooping, or are there? I don't know if there's an answer to that.
I think that it's smart for us not to rely just on social media to understand our kind of potential buyers. I think that there are lots of different avenues and technologies out there that you can use to understand, their business goals, what they're trying to achieve, what challenges they're facing at the moment, their buyer journey and their sales cycle. Lead Forensics, as an example, is a great software to understand, what are they currently interested in? Where are they located? What industry are they in? What challenges are they facing? And so I think there are multiple ways to kind of get to know and understand your audience, and without completely relying on social media. Networking, for example, that's a great way to kind of communicate with people and experts in your field that's just like you, and really make a difference.
I remember that networking. How retro, Georgina. Remember those days when we used to go networking with the people? Now I have to read this one off the sheet, right? Because I wasn't quite sure what it was. So innovation often comes from being faced with a challenge. Now, I think the last 12 months for everybody's been a challenge. So what challenges will the new e-privacy regulations around third-party cookies present to you? And what are you planning to do as a result? Michael, I'll come to you on that one. So the new e-privacy regulations around third-party cookies, and what are you planning to do about it?
Yeah, so I think I'm like yourself, Alison, as a salesperson. I'm definitely not a huge expert in this, but I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a chief marketing officer the other day, and they were saying, which was quite interesting, is that they actually think this is going to harm smaller businesses versus bigger businesses, because the likes of Amazon, Google, or Facebook, they already have so much data. Like, there's 1 billion people now, even on LinkedIn. I think there's like 2 or 3 billion on Facebook. So they've already got all that data. So they almost don't need cookies on their website. Whereas smaller companies, right, as they're growing, cookies is a great way for them to collect information. So it could actually, rather than kind of democratize data, it could kind of monopolize it. But yeah, that was just what a friend told me. I don't know too much on this subject.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think as a small business, this is where we do get affected. Ruth, have you got any insights on this?
Yeah, we're getting ready for that e-privacy regulation. I mean, it's a directive at the moment. It's in royal assent. So we expect that to come into being. Certainly for us, 50% of our customers view on a mobile phone. So that cookies policy, I mean, we don't have a cookies wall, but we have obviously a click, so a permission. We're expecting that, if it runs out, to dominate that page when you first land on a website. We already run Hotjar, analytics, lead forensics, live chat. We'd need individual sign-off to run all of those. So I completely agree with Michael. I think it's more damaging for smaller businesses. I'm hoping, I mean, we've got a consultant working with us to make sure that we're compliant with UK GDPR and now get ready for e-privacy. But I'm afraid I don't have a magic ticket to share with you on how we can work with our regulation to best serve our customers and not interrupt our customer journey. It's a challenge.
So one of the things I picked up from that, Ruth, is move quickly now to get that before it comes in. Work on that. And again, what's Hotjar? I've not heard of Hotjar. What's that?
It's so it's a third-party add-on, and what you can do in real time is you can watch people navigating a landing page, so you'll know what's working on that landing page and what isn't.
Nice, that's exciting, isn't it? You've got all the gear there, Ruth. All the gear. No wonder you've gone up by 40%. You're right in the innovation.
I know. It's addictive. It's absolutely addictive. Once you're on there, you'll just never leave.
I mean, the other thing you talked there about was the chatbot, and I think, as larger businesses, that's just a standard, isn't it? But for smaller businesses, like we use Zendesk, or and talking about the excitement, we call it the chapper, right? And every time somebody hits the website, it goes chap chap chap. I'm like, oh, someone's on the website. Yeah. And again, I think, for larger businesses, that's not particularly innovative, but there'll be people watching this from smaller businesses that actually this is a low cost option to have. And again, seeing who's been on your website, what pages they've been on, how long they've spent on it. Again, that really helps you to be able to convert, doesn't it? So like any of the technology out there that helps you the way that I look at it is I talk about like proactive and reactive. So the more often you can get like a reactive inbound inquiry, it makes your life a lot easier from the proactive side, doesn't it? Because they know your brand and your company. So Marlene, have you got any thoughts on the new changes in the policy?
Yes, so and it's interesting that you're saying the chat box, and I had a look into the topic because I thought, oh, is something else coming? I know GDPR is kind of gone and we're in the middle of it, but I thought, are there new regulations? And then doing my research, I found out that, for example, Nike has got an amazing website, and Nike hasn't got anything different than you would think. So what they have the chat box. And you would be surprised how many companies don't have it. So they have the chat box, they have the function, when you put something in your basket, or when you look at something, or when businesses look at something. And I know that's more consumer based, but I think it's also for the business. How many have, for example, purchased that top you've been looking at? They've got things like, putting things in your basket, it will stay in your basket, just those simple things. You would be surprised how many businesses don't have it. So by kind of ticking all the boxes and making it as easy as possible, and I think really the people have less time now, they're more busy, their attention span has really gone down, but by ticking all the boxes and making it as easy as possible, I think you can kind of prevent and gain a lot of customers.
So what we're saying is that the innovation around these like chat boxes and things on the home pages of websites is not really particularly innovative, because people have been doing it for years. It's just there's a lot of people who have been slow to adopt. And what you're saying is actually now they have to be innovative because of the way that we buy, the speed. And I think that fits into what Michael was saying, that the B2b sales cycle is shrinking. The B2C sales is as small as an ant. We want everything now. We don't want to wait. We want things on Prime. And again, we want the answers to our questions. So your top tip, I think, from everybody is if you haven't got this technology on your website, that's something that you should be doing, and you should be doing it now before any of the rules change. So again, that's brilliant top tips, everyone. Right, so we've got about 20 minutes left. What I'll do is just a little bit of a recap. If anybody does have any questions, and they are on the go-to webinar, you have to start to type them in now for the panel, because we have to move it across into a StreamYard. So we're on StreamYard on the Alison Edgar MBE YouTube channel. We will probably be taking some of these segments and again, Ruth taking the top tips in innovation. We'll be making these into some top tips for people that they can use. So yeah, any questions, start bringing them across now, because we will finish at 5. We also will be doing a couple of polls. I want you to start to think about the polls. So one of the polls will be around, would you like to have a free trial of lead forensics? We would love to be able to share some of this innovation that Ruth has talked about, and Georgina. The other one is, would you like to hear more from the speakers? If you want to hear from Ruth or Marlene or Michael or Georgina, then there will be a poll coming out close to the end on that as well. So be expecting some polls right now. So we're coming to one of my favorite questions. As far as social media goes, I'm coming to Michael first. As far as social media goes, the current disruptor in the market is Clubhouse. How do you think the rise of new platforms like Clubhouse will affect B2B marketing? So what's your thoughts on Clubhouse? And again, for the viewers that don't know what Clubhouse is, it's an audio-only marketing platform that you can actually go on 24 hours a day, jump into a room and have conversations with like-minded people. It's got different topics like business, startups, music, dating, whatever it is, but you can have a conversation, but only on audio, no video. So Michael, how do you think Clubhouse is going to disrupt the B2B marketing world?
Yeah, it's interesting because, this is a B2B webinar. What I've seen so far from Clubhouse, I certainly think it's good for B2C because you can connect with people individually on there. B2B, I'm still not convinced about it. There's a few reasons for that. One is because, say like this webinar, for example, that Lead Forensics are doing, everyone that's attending this webinar has had to submit their email address. So like Lead Forensics can then follow up with them afterwards. On Clubhouse, you're not currently able to do that. I'm not sure if they will do that. I don't know if that's kind of like the point of Clubhouse. What I do like about it is very spontaneous in the same way Twitter is. So I almost feel like you'll have discussion. Like if there's a topic in the news, suddenly there's, big conversation on Clubhouse about it with like 500 people. I think you can also access people there who you wouldn't be able to access otherwise. Like I've seen, people with big followings on Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., and they're in a Clubhouse room with like 20 people, and you can just go on there and ask them questions. So I think it's all very new at the moment. I think it's quite difficult to tell at the moment if it's going to be like a really good B2B channel. I think it's interesting, the whole format with just being voice. But yeah, I think it's to be seen whether it's going to be like a big B2B platform.
I mean, it's interesting. They've had some big names on there. You've had Elon Musk, you've had Mark Zuckerberg. You're getting some of the big players. I'll come to Georgina. I know that you're not on Clubhouse yet, but do you think it's a disruptor to the B2B marketing strategies for some businesses?
In my opinion, I think that apps such as Clubhouse can only be a good thing for B2B marketers. I think it provides the opportunity to hear from the big influencers and the big brands within the industry that you wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to kind of engage with and communicate with. And I think that it's going to help to keep up to date with innovation and the latest trends and the kind of hot topics and news within the industry. So not only that, but it sounds as though it helps and provides an opportunity to build relationships and promote your product to a highly engaged audience that are interested in what you're saying, because you can create rooms that have specific topics, and so that's a forum for you to in real time communicate with your audience and promote your products and your services.
I agree. I am a huge fan, but I do find it rather addictive. Now, Ruth, I have that question. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you how Clubhouse works because I know that you're not on there yet.
I've been invited.
But I do. So this is my question around it, Ruth. So if we look at like sales and marketing strategies, the fear of missing out is something that we try and envelope, though, don't they? We only got 2 of these left, or that the sort of fear close and that energy and that excitement around our brand. So they're obviously using that to the max, really, because you're gagging to get on the Clubhouse, Ruth. How do you think that they did that, and how do you think that anybody watching this can try and create that FOMO to their marketing? What can...
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question.
It's like I do this for a job.
I know. Yeah. So part of the excitement for me to get onto Clubhouse certainly is that fear of missing out. I think what they've done really well here is that they've done something like Fight Club, haven't they? They've created this exclusivity that now you've got the paid app, you've got the free apps. Now you can only get on this app if you're invited. And certainly for me, wherever there's a large audience, I'd love to be able to present my brand. But I totally agree with Michael when he said it'll be really hard to segment and target if you don't have that data to be able to go after those individuals anyway. So I'm picking that up from the panelists. What can we do to create that fear of missing out? Well, we do a little bit of that by having, when we sell training courses, we have a countdown for how many places are left on there or how many places you can have at a discounted rate. But apart from that, we don't use any other tactics. But anything I can learn from Clubhouse, I'll certainly bring back to the team.
Yeah, she's looking for that FOMO strategy. Marlene, what's your thoughts on that around the marketing strategy? Because they've obviously nailed it, these guys, and one of the things that Michael will know this, that you connect your Twitter and you connect your Instagram so that people can go off of Clubhouse and direct messages. So there is a way, again, if you're putting a lead magnet out, that you can actually move them off the platform. And my question to somebody on Clubhouse was, well, why is there no LinkedIn link? Because that would make sense that, especially for a B2B function, But the answer was, I think they're looking to sell, and I think they've got 2 people they're trying to sell to. And maybe that would be Twitter or Instagram. So again, I don't know that for a fact. Don't quote me. That's what I've heard. But if you look at that, is quite a clever strategy for exit as well, if you ask me. Marlene, have you got any comments around how people can actually start to do something like the Clubhouse strategy in their business?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not on Clubhouse, and I'd love to be on. I'm wondering why it's only exclusivity, why only a certain amount, or if you get invited, why you can only go on. So I doubt it'll be a business disruptor, but maybe it'll prove me wrong. So I think every business can do something similar, you know. I mean, like what we're doing now, you know. We've got a panel. We will have questions coming in. So you could, for example, do an interactive webinar, you know. Or again, maybe have what we're doing in our business now, we've got a group of customers who are all trying to be innovative, trying to move forward with technology. So we're going to set up some sort of a user group where they can interact with each other. And I mean, obviously we were thinking, it might be difficult to have a user group for our hosting business because they kind of compete with each other. But again, you know, where they can kind of attend, tell what they want to tell, keep secret.
You're freezing a wee bit in there, Marlene. I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about having...
keep secret. I think it's just...
Oh, you froze a wee bit, Marlene. We missed the end of that, but I think I got the gist. Like you're saying, like for your customers, try and find like the early adopters or the role models. So literally, it sounds a wee bit like Ruth. I mean, Ruth sounds to be like one of the, if you're looking for somebody that's using forensics, but is a real early adopter in different fields, get them on a webinar. Great strategy, Georgina and Molly, who did that. So we are now we've got 9 minutes left, but we do have some questions. So I want to start with, I'm going to come to Michael on this one. Michael, how long do you suggest the audio note or video should be?
Yeah, so if it's on LinkedIn, they actually limit you to a minute, which I think is good because it shouldn't be longer than a minute, and kind of the shorter you can be, the better. So aim for like 30, 40 seconds. If you go over that, it's not a big deal. Just make sure it's relevant to them. You can also, something I didn't mention earlier, which we've seen is much more effective than emails, is actually SMS and then WhatsApp. WhatsApp isn't that widely used in North America, but outside North America. And there you can send audio notes as well. Those can be longer than a minute, but I recommend still under a minute. And just to give you a stat around that, 90% of cold SMS texts are opened versus 20% of cold emails are opened. So like the open rate is vastly different. And a lot of people think, it's too personal, like texting someone. It's the same as email or LinkedIn. As long as your message is highly relevant to them, you're going to engage them.
So what should on that 40-second note, video or voice note, what should the call to action be at the end?
Yeah, there's a few things with the call to action, right? It could be related to a bit of content. So there's been a lot of talk today around the merge of sales and marketing. So I think very good salespeople now are very familiar with the content of their company. So actually build curiosity about a piece of content and say, hey, like this webinar, for example, hey, we're doing a webinar on sales and marketing, innovative tactics. I saw you're a VP marketing in SaaS. Like, would you be interested in receiving an invite? And that's it. You're not asking for a meeting. And then if you are asking for a meeting, always think about why would this person give 15 minutes of their time? Because a lot of people say, hey, can we have a call without even knowing what's going to happen on that call? So think about, we're going to help you and educate you on X problem or X trend. And that's your call to action.
And that's where that personalization comes in as well with all that research. That's brilliant. Okay, we have lost Marlene because her internet issues. She might pop back in before the end, but we'd be sorry to see her go for the last 7 minutes. Right, so there's another question come through. Where should startup B2B companies invest in terms of innovation in reaching their target audience? Ruth, I'm going to come to you on that one. We have got, I'll just repeat the question back. Where should startup B2B companies invest in terms of innovation in reaching their target audience?
Well, if it was my business, I would certainly invest in live chat. You've already got those customers that are interested in your product. You've already spent the time and effort to get them there. You might as well engage when they're hot and they've got intent. It's a low cost option. And even if you don't have the bandwidth to do it, you could obviously put it live when there's, when you're at times in the day when your website is really buoyant.
Right, so your top tip is having the chat on the website. Georgina, where do you think that, apart from lead forensics, where else do you think that a startup B2B should invest in terms of their marketing to reach the target audience?
I would say that website personalization is a really good place to start in terms of converting your website traffic. As Ruth's kind of said and mentioned that you've put all of your efforts into driving that traffic to your website, and so it makes complete sense to give a personalized experience when they do land on your website. So we currently use a tool called Webio, and that just enables us to specify our CRO tactics, such as our pop-ups and our live chat and our header banners, to kind of relay and specify to what industry they're in or put their company name on the website, which does kind of make them feel, of course, special, and hopefully will kind of boost conversions. But I would definitely say that website personalization would be a great consideration.
Can you repeat the name of the tool as well, Georgina? Because I'm sure there'll be people writing things down.
Webio.
Webio, spell it, W-E-B-I-E?
Webeo.
Perfect. Michael, so, you've talked about LinkedIn a lot. We're saying here in terms of investing, but what do you think? Invest time or invest money? Because obviously you can do all that stuff on LinkedIn for free without the Sales Navigator. Yeah. So what do you think they should be investing in tools and money or in time?
Yes, it's a good question, because I think often people buy software, and I've seen this with companies that just raise rounds and they're just like, we're going to buy a ton of software. And then what ends up happening is like their teams often don't use half of the software. And I see this with the clients we work with the sales teams. And they're like, we got all this technology, I'm overwhelmed. I've got my sales targets here and I've got to use all this tech. So often like lean is better. Of course, you need some tech, things like lead forensics. Obviously, we're on their webinar today is great to see who's on their website. I think simple technology is often good. Like lead forensics is simple, but it's effective, right? This company's on your website, reach out to them. So I think it's really important, if you buy any type of technology as a leader, sales or marketing leader, or whatever kind of leader you are, have a plan for like onboarding and implementation, and know it's going to take time. Same way you have like training to ramp up a team just on your company, you also need training to like ramp up your team on a product. So always take that into account. If it's a really busy period, like end of quarter for salespeople, it may not be the best time to like invest in a new technology.
So what you're saying is just be careful not to have all the gear and no idea. Keep it simple. You go for either things that you can do manually, like using automation and using the video and the audio, or have light touch tips that you can actually use rather than a whole load of tech and you don't use any of it. Is that what you're saying there, Michael?
Yeah, exactly. If I give you an example, like we were talking about videos earlier, right? So we use two tools like Vidyard and Loom. There's a load of different ones. And literally you just go download the extension. It comes up in your browser and you just click on it and you can start sharing screen and creating videos. So I know if I advise someone to do that, their sales team can pick it up in like 5 minutes versus something else like a CRM or something like that that's going to take, a whole load of time to implement. So that's just an example.
So one of the things, I think we're coming to the end now, just to let everybody know that we can't use the polls while we're doing live video. We're trying to get Marlene back in, but I honestly have no idea how to make that magic happen. We are, I don't think I can get you back in, Marlene. I'm gutted because I like to have you in my room at all times. But if what I'm going to do is we're going to end the live streaming, and if people that are still on GoToWebinar can actually stay around and do the 2 polls, that would be amazing. One is around getting a free trial of lead forensics. I mean, we've all said that's a great tool. And the other one is, do you want to get in touch with the speakers? Because obviously there's been so many brilliant points. There's been so many brilliant tools. So on that note, I am going to stop the live streaming and it will go back to GoToWebinar. And then if everybody wants to fill in the polls. So a huge thank you to Ruth for that amazing insight, to Michael for the brilliant top tips. Georgina, thank you so much for your input. And Marlene, we miss you. I don't know how we can get you back in, but I will catch you soon. Thank you everybody for viewing. Have a lovely afternoon, and go to GoToWebinar so that you can fill in your poll. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye, everyone. See you at the next one.
Thank you.